The following is a Hoop Ball presentation.
I am so thankful that Ball In, Ball Out was not recorded 2 hours ago, because if it was, we would have missed the greatest news in Lakerland since the signing of Rajon Rondo. Welcome to the Beasley pod, everyone. I'm Dan Besbris. Eli, what's up, man?
Oh my God, I have no idea what's up. I feel like at this point, like Magic is kind of trolling us, or he's like a guy in Vegas drunk at the blackjack table at 4 a.m, and he's just like on a winning streak, so he's just going for it. Because this is nuts. We now have the weirdest team of all time.
Beasley was like the joke name that people were throwing out. Oh, who could the Lakers add to their ridiculous lineup that would make this even more spectacular? Michael Beasley. I bet he's out there. Unbelievable.
It's unreal. It's like, you remember the movie Major League, and it's like all the weirdos just kind of like pull up and
the greatest montage in sports film history, you mean?
Yeah, we pretty much have all of those guys except for like the Tom Berenger catcher.
Yeah, we do.
We just have all of the weird guys.
We do have the Tom Berenger catcher. His name is Luol Deng.
Oh, that's true. That's true. I forget. I always forget that he's on this team.
Yeah, he's just sitting it out, man. He's waiting. We need who's Roger Dorn on this team? Who's just
I have no idea. Yeah, just dogging grounders.
Yeah.
Do you think at this point Luke, when he just opens his phone and gets the text, is just like shaking his head quietly?
I think he's laughing. I think he's
chuckling. He must be. I feel like like when Obama became president and like, looked really young, and then 2 years later, he was just like completely gray and looked tired. Yeah. I feel like by the end of the season, Luke is going to be either completely bald or completely gray.
Yeah, or potentially like gray with one of those beards that just really doesn't look distinguished anymore. Oh yeah, he's well on his. So I feel like, okay, we thought we were going to talk about Kawhi Leonard on this podcast.
We will.
What you're getting is
over the shock.
This is immediate reaction. I just got home from a preschool tour, turned on my computer, and saw this is the most recent news in basketball. Michael Beasley agrees to deal with the Lakers. I thought that I was reading some sort of joke thread.
It does. Seems cruel.
But the breakdown from our good friends over on the fantasy side at hoop-ball.com. By the way, you can follow us at Hoopball Lakers. I am at Dan Besbris. He is at Eli Bauman. You guys know how to find us. That's a thing now. A strange, eventful summer for the Lakers gets even more strange and eventful. This is a quote, by the way, from Hoopball. ESPN's Chris Haynes is reporting that it's a 1-year, $3.5 million deal. Beasley figures to slot in as a reserve power forward who can pack a little scoring punch in a pinch, but the Lakers are deep enough that he won't register on fantasy radars. Okay, that's fine. I haven't had time to prepare any actual thoughts about Michael Beasley, but the narrative for the Lakers has been, well, they want like high IQ passing types like Rajon Rondo,
sure,
and high defense, like really gritty types.
I'm starting to feel like they just forgot the IQ part. And they just guys who are high.
He gets buckets. I mean, we can say that about Beasley. I think his nickname is Buckets,
dude,
right?
I'm going to once again, and at this point, I don't know. I'm probably just turned into a full crazy person. But I will say this for Magic. They have a vision.
What is it?
Stayed to that vision, which is like they're basically signing every hothead wild card that was available on the free agent market. And they're basically, I think, just kind of going like, we're going to do an actual 1-year science experiment. And just like, let's see what like the best player on the planet, plus promising youth, plus like guys who are insane. Like if that can beat the Warriors,
this feels like a bad heist movie. You're giving me.
It does, but like everyone's the bomb expert.
That's exactly right.
It's like Ocean's 8 if they all had the same skill, which is just being a lunatic.
Yeah, the wild card. You got to have. You only want one of those guys, and that's the entire team. Oh, this is nuts. Okay, so there is. All right. So trying to make sense of it a little bit, there is the notion that Michael Beasley is still a pretty gifted scorer. For all of his warts.
Season last year.
He did. He has warts. He has many of them. He doesn't play any defense. He's a hothead. He's very much a ball hog. He's like an absolute black hole on the offensive side, but he can create, which I think when we hear the Lakers spin on this ultra weird signing, I have a strong suspicion it's going to be, well, we wanted to sign guys who could create either their own shot or shots for others, because those guys are at a premium in the NBA. But is it worth it?
Well, it seems like we may have overly internalized that lesson.
Yeah, every single guy.
With the exception of JaVale, every guy on the team can create their own shot. I mean, like literally every person in the 14 people that are signed besides JaVale can. It's just a really combustible situation. It's in Los Angeles, so if they're going to get into trouble, it's not going to be hard to find.
Oy.
I was hoping they were going to use the 15th spot. I kind of had my heart set on Montrezl Harrell, who's oddly unsigned by the Clippers right now.
Yeah, he's a restricted free agent, right?
He's a restricted free agent, but they have 16 guys on their roster. So it's just kind of... So anyway, I was hoping they were going to use the spot for Montrez or a licensed psychiatrist.
Or Jeff Ayers, who I read has the same agent as Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah, or Jeff Ayers.
Was Jeff Pendergraft before, right? He changed his name. Is that the same dude?
Who is he?
Was he Jeff Pendergraft before he went to Europe and changed his name to Ayers?
I have no idea.
I gotta look this one up while we're on air. I might be making that up.
What is this, like Mission Impossible, Rogue Nation? They're just like have aliases?
He was, yeah. Jeffrey Curtis Ayers, formerly known as Jeff Pendergraft, is an American professional. Thank you, Wikipedia.
That is the most, somehow that's the craziest story of our offseason.
That we didn't sign Jeff Pendergraft, now Jeff Ayers. I'm going to learn.
The whole thing is wild, man.
He's a Southern California guy. He's a Inland Empire type. It's probably... Got that in connection with. Well, we'll talk about Kawhi later on, I guess. So it was going to be the whole show, and now we got this madness. Where does he slot in?
This is our team.
Yeah, good point. It's going to be entertaining. Well,
yeah, I mean, I do think that on a just basketball level, it's become a little puzzling. I mean, I do think Magic is kind of everyone is zigging and he's zagging, and I'm okay with that. But also, I think all of these contracts are like extremely tradable. And I think maybe segueing into Kawhi for a second, we may not be done. This roster may not be the same roster that we have in April. Do you know what I mean?
Do you think there's any? This is, again, we just saw this Michael Beasley news, so we haven't exactly been working these theories out, and one just popped into my head. You mentioned tradable assets. Is it possible that, we threw this out on our last podcast as kind of a something in passing, but also it does have some legs, that this is like the LeBron rest year, where you let these other guys, maybe even let the old guys run a little bit the first 2 months, see if Rajon Rondo can put up giant numbers, or maybe Michael Beasley can average like 16 points, and try to move those guys for a second-round pick down the line. I mean, is there any value to a weird set of moves like that? It almost feels like you're playing too long of a long game at that point.
Yeah, I think like my grandfather had an expression that he would always say, which is like too cute by half, where you kind of like outfox yourself. It feels like this might be that. I don't really know what we're doing, but I do think I'm of the opinion that Magic Johnson does. I know he's getting made fun of a lot, but I actually think they handled the Kawhi thing really intelligently. It wasn't a panic move, and they resisted all of the panic plays so far, and I put my trust in them, but this does feel like maybe we're trying too many weird things at once, because if you are trying to let the kids kind of develop, it's just weird to have assembled kind of this like not really mentor type guys, unless I'm missing something.
No, I don't think you're missing anything. I'm trying to come up with it from as many angles as humanly possible, and yeah, I think to some degree there has been a little bit of an outfoxing here because somewhere it feels like, and this is kind of a fun part of it, I guess, is this is now really a team built to feature the young core. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, these guys,
yes.
Almost none of these guys were brought in to displace any of the young guys. I think Rondo's the only one that has a legitimate chance to sort of overtake one of the Lakers' kids in Lonzo Ball.
And I think that's the guy they want to push.
Right.
I think Lonzo's the guy that this is his kind of tryout year, I think.
And then they haven't, like you said, they haven't made any panic moves, probably because there's free agents for days coming up in the next offseason. And nobody's getting past the Warriors this season. So
right, within its own logic, it all makes sense. It's just a lot of different parts of it that are crazy.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy guys. I mean,
but as I was saying, like I do think Magic has a vision. It just seems like it might be a drunk guy at a blackjack table double vision. It's just a little crazy.
Yeah.
But, I mean, he is Magic Johnson.
The logic that we're using right now, or at least in my own head, is basically it's the same logic I would have used if they had signed nobody besides LeBron James, which is like,
right.
No, it's LeBron and the kids. And it's a little bit disappointing that that's the logic I have to use after 4 or 5 additional free agents signed with the team. There should be some other aspect to it. Because if you're looking for playmakers, I mean, you've got Lonzo, you've got Brandon Ingram right there in the young guys. You have 2 other legitimate playmakers. So I don't...
Right.
I get it. The zig and the zag thing, that makes a lot of sense. You don't necessarily only want these shooters that can't play any defense. There's something to... Because LeBron actually by himself is not that great of a defender anymore, and it kind of compounds when you've got other guys that can't stay near anybody. So there's some merit to that, but boy, that's going all in on the no shooting, all like angry ball handlers. Yeah.
I remember one time, and I wish he was here. But Eric, I remember
he's treating people right now. He's a doctor, for God's sake. He doesn't have time for this nonsense.
I hope he's treating our team. But I remember one year Eric must have casually mentioned to his parents that he liked the Crocodile Hunter. Because
I don't know where this is going, but it's going to be great.
Well, because then for his birthday, he got like 6 gifts. Like every single gift he got was some Crocodile Hunter affiliated thing, and I feel like he just casually mentioned it probably once. And this does feel like in that Magic LeBron meeting, that LeBron was like, "I don't want specialists, I want playmakers," and then Magic went out and got 8 playmakers.
8 lunatic playmakers. So welcome to the LA Lakers. 2018-2019 is going to be a weird one.
One thing, should we talk about Kawhi now, or do you want to talk about Summer League? Because I have thoughts on both.
I have very few thoughts on Summer League, so I'd like to hear yours, actually.
Okay, well, as a weirdo, I watched every single Summer League game.
And you and Eric went to the pre-Summer League games in Sacramento.
Yeah, which was awful. We played terribly. And yeah, we learned nothing from that. But I do think we learned a lot from our deep run. We made the finals.
Josh Hart, man, that I did see. I did see that Josh Hart got ejected twice and was also the Summer League MVP. That's a pretty sweet trophy case.
Yeah, he did it all. He did it all. And LeBron showed up, and that was cool. And I mean, there was nothing not to love about Summer League.
And Manny Machado is a Dodger. It's all coming up. It's all coming up LA right now.
Yeah, it's all coming up Millhouse. But yeah, they basically challenged Josh Hart to prove that he was the best player in Summer League, and he proved he was the best player in Summer League. He just looks like a stud. It's weird. I think, and this kind of involves Kawhi a little bit, but I do think that the national media has pretty consistently undervalued our young guys. Like, I think...
Oh, yeah.
I don't think there's a complete appreciation of Ingram, how actually good Kuzma was last year, how good Josh Hart is. Like, Josh Hart is an NBA rotation player for sure.
Oh, you're reminding me, and I don't think I'll be able to find it in time because it's days ago now. But what you said is so very true, and I'm trying to my best when I go through this stuff to wear kind of pragmatic goggles and not get caught up in the Lakers hoopla. But someone was ranking young cores and had the Lakers at like 7th, and I thought
I saw that article, and I was
crazy.
like. I was like, are they paying attention?
No, not at all.
Whatever you think about Lonzo's shot, Lonzo is a really good defender, and he's a really good passer and really good rebound.
He was like top 3 in point guard defense this year in the NBA. He was one of the best defending point guards in the entire league as a rookie with a bad knee.
Yeah.
That's...
Yeah.
I can understand...
Feel like kind of on our young players and think that we don't know what we're doing. I think there's a lot of evidence that's... this team all last year, and are they going to get better? So,
I mean, that article irritated me because I felt like it could have, like I could buy the argument for like the Celtics. They have a really good young core. Philadelphia, they've got these 2 young superstars, but then there were this list of teams that just went a mile long, and it blew my mind.
Yeah, well, I think this is something that we mentioned in the last pod, which is just like the overvaluation of potential. And it's like, everyone was talking about, a first-round draft pick. And like, that's only good if the player ends up being good. I mean, like, you were talking about DeAndre Ayton. It's like, no one has any idea if that guy's going to be good, but because it's an unknown thing, you can always project whatever fantasy you want onto what he's going to be. I do think that, Lonzo Ball was, oh my God, he's going to revolutionize the NBA. And then people saw him play and reacted the other way. Like, oh, well, he's not good. Do you see how he shot? And it's like, dude, he's 20. Like we don't know. And actually, if you watch closely, you can see a lot of good stuff. Like there's a ton of good stuff. Even if he just peaks out at what he was last year, which he's not going to.
No.
That's still a really good NBA player. I would be more than happy to have that guy on my team.
I'm a big Lonzo file. We've done that on this pod before. I'm very pro Lonzo. I love the fact that he can play defense and rebound. I mean, he's a point guard that's actually, not only is he playing defense, but you can actually see it in the box score. Like he's blocking shots from the point guard position, it's crazy. His hands are great. I love his lightning fast passes. There's nothing I love more than a dude throwing fastballs on a basketball court. That tickles me in a way that maybe it shouldn't, but because everyone on the court is so absurdly fast, to have the guy who throws the ball just a little bit harder, that's going to get dudes open looks. And I don't know. I don't feel like that. I mean, LeBron does that too, but a lot of point guards, and this is something like Drew Holiday actually falls into this category for me as a really good guard who was a really bad point guard for New Orleans because his passes were slow. He threw slow passes. They got picked off all the time. You can't do that in the NBA. And Lonzo's throwing heat. He's like DeGrom out there. I love it. I'm very pro Lonzo, and I'm very irritated that the Phoenix Suns were ranked higher than the Lakers. They're terrible. They were terrible. Devin Booker is a great shooter, but he's a chucker. And Josh Jackson's a chucker, and TJ Warren's a chucker. I know that whole team because they're all chuckers. They're
also,
great.
Josh Jackson looked awful in Summer League. I mean, just as a subplot, like I think that's another, and who knows how it's going to play out. I don't believe people should give up on, but like that guy who I had heard was like, oh, well, this is going to be Josh Jackson's breakout season. I was like, that guy was unplayable in Summer League this year, which is not a good sign. And I think like, back to Devin Booker, who's obviously like a really good player, but Devin Booker looks miserable to play with. And awful. Lonzo, for whatever you think about Lonzo, is like by all accounts, and I mean, you can just watch it. Like he's incredibly fun to play with. He's incredibly unselfish. He runs fast. He wants you to succeed.
He plays defense.
He plays defense, so you don't have to. I got so excited, and I don't know how long they're going to be able to do it at any given time, but there was some talk about, the Lakers, quote, death lineup. Like basically equivalent of the Golden State death lineup. And, that's basically they're saying LeBron at the center, LeBron at the 5, Kuzma at the 4, Ingram at the 3, Josh Hart at the 2, and Lonzo at the 1. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a good team, but that is the most fun lineup I could possibly imagine.
It's pretty
watching.
sweet that 4 of the 5 guys in that lineup are effectively crazy young. Like Ingram is the old
23
man.
and under.
That's that puts a guy like KCP in a really nice reserve role, if you wanted to call it. I mean, he's probably going to start this year, right? But
though it seems like that might be up in the air. Magic keeps hinting that Josh Hart is basically playing for a starting role, and was kind of like, look, it's there for the taking. If he takes it, he takes it. And that was kind of the challenge for Josh Hart in Summer League. By the way, just while we're still talking Summer League, Svi Mikhailuk is a superstar. I'm sorry. I'm like every other diehard Laker fan. I have now become obsessed with Svi Mikhailuk.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was prior to the draft. I still don't really know who he is, but I did look up his name and thought, that's pretty cool. But it sounds like he was just bombing in threes.
No, that is not true. He was nasty. He crossed dudes over. He dunked. He can drop. He's good. He's one of those guys who was like a point guard until he was 16 or 17. And then kind of sprouted up. So he has... I originally thought he was just a sharpshooter. He was going to be just a guy who spotted up or maybe came off screens. He's actually way, way, way better than that. I don't know how they did it. Like the Lakers found another guy that unless he gets to the league and you're like, oh, he can't defend anyone, which by the way, did not look true in Summer League. It's Summer League. He's defending guys who may not play, but he's good. He's feisty. Like his feet move fast. He's not just like a slow white dude. And by the way, neither was Wagner when he played.
Yeah, before
like
he
not a stiff.
Well, he's gonna have to play, right? Because the Lakers are a little bit thin at center this year.
I think both of them are gonna play. I mean, I don't know who's not gonna play because it seems like we're almost.
I hope the answer is Lance Stevenson.
Yeah,
that's the one dude in this whole team that I hope doesn't actually play. He's a net negative out there.
I'll tell you who definitely shouldn't play as well is Isaac Bonga.
Who's like 12 years old.
Is 12 years old and seemed like he had just started playing basketball.
Yeah. Sounds like he'll be your ticket to the South Bay Lakers. What's that guy's name? Like Isaac Tran, who's selling you seats down there?
Oh, yeah. I don't want to say something because it's going to end up being vaguely racist if I try to guess what his name is.
I don't remember what. I'm sure it's in an email. We could look it up. But they'll rope you in for season tickets to go see Bonga. that's how they get you.
But okay, so let me ask you this though, because I do feel like some of this kind of like overvaluing of draft picks and potential actually came to fruition in the Kawhi trade in a weird way, which was like, I mean, I don't know what they were being offered, but it definitely seems like San Antonio didn't want a kind of youth movement rebuild among potential and took basically a finished product in DeMar DeRozan. I mean, what are your thoughts on that kind of choice that they made?
So if you put all the emotional stuff aside, because I can't really speak to all that aspect of this, and it seems pretty clear that DeMar is pretty upset about it. I think this is a move the Raptors were wise to make.
Yeah, I get
like
it from their standpoint for sure.
From the San Antonio standpoint, it just seems like they probably weren't getting offered any of the stuff they wanted, right? Ultimately, because for them, their choices were try to get a whole bunch of really good young players. They wanted, Brandon Ingram, Kyle Kuzma, whatever. They wanted Markelle Fultz. They wanted someone that they could go
Sounds
young.
Like they didn't want Markelle Fultz, though. It sounded like they were asking for Ben Simmons.
Oh, well, that was just never going to happen.
I'm like, they're going to hang up the phone. That's why I still don't really understand what their approach was.
Ask for too much, it seems like was the approach. And get shot down repeatedly until someone went back to the drawing board and was like, guys, I don't think we've gone about this the right way. We're not going to get any of the dudes we're asking for. They wanted to be able to go young because right now they're locked into like a LaMarcus Aldridge purgatory where they're not going to win the West and they're not going to get a good draft pick. So I think they just decided, we're not going to get the really great draft picks or young players, so screw it. Let's just double down on LaMarcus Aldridge, but guard the guard form of LaMarcus. And it's just going to be mid-range until the end of time out there, and they'll be decent for 3 or 4 years. So, if that's good enough for your franchise, then that's fine. They'll be an entertaining team. They'll be in the playoffs, I think. They won't win the championship.
But they're stubborn, but they're not stupid. So, asking for Ben Simmons, is a non-starter.
Yeah.
I think it became pretty clear pretty quick that asking for Brandon Ingram was going to be a non-starter. I think that's how the Lakers view him. And I by the way, I think that's correct. As time went on, I started to think that was more and more correct with all of the questions about Kawhi. I think I came around to the notion of I'm not getting rid of Brandon Ingram, and the rest of the roster, maybe we can talk.
Right. And plus there's going to be
San Antonio knew that,
guys.
Right?
Yeah, I think they did. I think they were hoping that someone would do something dumb, and ultimately they found, I guess to San Antonio's credit, they found a trade partner that was in the right spot, where the Raptors sort of have they've got one last gasp up there. Lowry's going to start the downhill. DeRozan's about to probably start his downhill. Serge Ibaka is all the way near the end of his downhill.
Yeah.
Their run was close to done. They had DeRozan and Lowry, I think, signed for 2 more seasons each.
Once again, it makes, to me, the trade actually made a ton of sense on the surface. I'm like, if I'm Toronto, I'm basically going, Kawhi's a huge upgrade over DeRozan. We can basically compete for the finals.
Oh, yeah.
To me, this team is now 1B. I still think Boston is probably the best team, depending on how they come together. I think Toronto is the almost equal, and then I think Philly is one notch behind.
Is Kawhi now the best player in the Eastern Conference? He or Giannis, right?
Oh, yeah. Yes. It's between those two, I think.
Which is a pretty sweet thing to get.
It just depends which version of Kawhi it is.
Right.
And I think that still remains to be seen. But I get it from San Antonio's perspective in that, DeRozan's going to be good. They're going to be in the playoffs probably, with this team. This is a competitive team. Maybe they won 47 games with just Aldridge last year. So, maybe they're a 50-win team. Maybe they're feisty. Who knows? But I don't understand why they didn't ask for more on top. They got what seems like maybe the 5th best young guy.
Yeah, Toronto. They have a lot of really interesting bench guys.
Siakam or Anunoby or Van Vliet. They just had better guys that I would have wanted. And San Antonio had worse guys that I would have tried to dump. Danny Green is good.
Yeah, they sent away their best. Actually, I think I read that he's the best transition defender in the NBA, which is a weird stat. But
good. Why not try to ditch Patty Mills or Pau Gasol or I don't know.
I don't know. That's the thing. They're in Aldridge purgatory right now. I don't know what they're trying to do. They're not spreading the floor.
And Popovich is not trying to go out with a rebuild.
No.
I think is also what happened.
So do we think this is the Spurs saying, all right, we're going to ride this one for 2 or 3 years, and then we're tearing it down? They'll just squeeze a little bit out of it?
Maybe, but then why not try to have OG Anunoby in your rebound? That's the part that I don't understand is just and maybe it just shows how little leverage they had. Maybe Toronto was just we're not giving you any of those guys.
But here, we do have an all-star.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah, I think that may be it. I think they just may have had no leverage at all, and it was the Raptors and who? Was anybody else even bidding at this point?
No, I mean, it seems like they once you decide you're not interested in the youth packages, you're and once Kawhi basically seemed to make it very clear that he's a rental unless he's going to LA, I guess there's really not that much you can do. Watch, I'm sure now Jacob Podol will score 30 points a game and will be the next,
He'll actually be okay, I think, with San Antonio because they always maximize these guys. And I thought he played okay even with Toronto last year, but he's definitely not a linchpin young guy. He's not a budding superstar. He's a budding solid defensive center, which in the modern NBA, they barely get to play anymore.
Right.
Well, I mean, So what does this mean from the Lakers' standpoint then? Is this
Well, okay, so I mean, this is great news. I mean, it's great news for any number of reasons. One, he's out of the immediate reason, he's out of the West. One of the best players in the league is out of the West. So that's great. We don't have to compete with Kawhi on the Spurs this year. And whatever you think of DeRozan, and I like DeRozan a lot, but he's not Kawhi Leonard.
No.
So that's item one. Item two is he seems instantly unhappy with Toronto picking him up, which, by the way, I disagree with him. Toronto's an awesome city.
Yeah, I think he'll end up playing there and being like palatable for them. I don't think he's going to sit out.
He's not. I mean, it's just too much money to lose.
Yeah.
But he doesn't see it. It's not where he wanted to go. And it's not even on probably his second tier of places he wanted to go. So, I mean, for us, that's great news. He seems very firmly on the table, barring some huge change of heart. And I know people keep talking about Paul George, but this is a different situation than that situation. And Russell Westbrook is different than Kyle Lowry, and I don't think there are that many parallels.
Yeah, I don't think Kawhi feels like he needs to be shielded from national media attention by a guy like Russell Westbrook. It feels like the Paul George thing was like he didn't want to be held responsible for anything.
Agreed.
I don't know what Kawhi Leonard is thinking. It's whatever Uncle Dennis is thinking.
Literally nobody does. I don't even know that he does.
No, it's Uncle D.
So what do you think? What do you think going? Okay, so let's say this just plays out in the most kind of likely scenario, which is Kawhi plays out the season. He probably likes it more than he thought he would. Toronto's frisky but doesn't win the finals. We're frisky and don't win the finals. And we're now sitting this time, July 2020, if Trump hasn't killed all of us by that point, or, if we're not owned by Russia, what do you think happens?
Well, they don't own the Nets anymore, so I can't make any jokes about Prokhorov, except that there was that story earlier this week, which I know it wasn't like your news-breaking guy, but I forget who it was, something Arthur, I think, who put out a story about Kawhi Leonard starting to work on building his own super team, potentially in LA, potentially in Brooklyn, I guess was on his list. I don't know. And I tried to come up with reasoning why someone might leak a story like that, and I couldn't, other than Brooklyn, I couldn't really figure out who that would benefit. I don't know. I kind of liked it better when he was just miserable, because then it was like, oh, well, the Lakers, this is where I want to go. There's nothing really else that's on the table right now. The longer he was miserable, the more the Lakers become the shining beacon for him. And now he's going to be less miserable.
But he's not necessarily that much less miserable. I think he might end up being less miserable, but he seemed pretty miserable about this trade.
Yeah, I guess that his camp leaked to Chris Haynes that he didn't want to play in Toronto within 8 minutes after the trade.
1 second. Let me ask you a slightly different question. Does this raise any red flags as far as whether or not the Lakers should want him on the Lakers?
No, I'm still good with it.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Me too. But I do think it's at least worth noting.
Yeah, I agree.
Noticing.
I completely agree. I think you and I and Eric, we've done a really good job at every point along the way. We've stopped and we've said, has any of this changed whether or not we want him? And every time we've had a good reason to say yes, but a much better reason to say no. Because, this is like the Eli Manning stuff in football, right? Where he refused to play in San Diego, was it? Is that how that whole thing shook out?
Yeah,
I don't
San
watch
Diego.
I don't watch the NFL very much, but ultimately he ended up going where he wanted to go and then winning Super Bowl. That's a success story of a guy being a total dick, getting what he wanted, and it working out for the team where he ended up. It does tend to go okay.
Happen.
Yeah.
But it does seem, I think the notion that he's like the easy superstar has now been fully dispelled.
Oh, completely. He's the least easy superstar.
Yeah. Which is funny because the way I've kind of got it in my head, looking ahead to 2019, because I do think to some extent that's also what's happening here. Every indication of how the Lakers have played out free agency is being like, let's be fun and competitive this year and see what happens. But really next year is where the team, the fully formed, like, we're here to crush you, Ivan Drago style team, is 2019. And for me, the top, and I think it's unlikely because I think he's going to re-sign, but even over Kawhi, the guy I want is Klay Thompson. That's my number one pick.
I think I'd probably go Kawhi as my number one. Although Kevin Durant might be my number one.
Oh yeah, well that's a whole other thing. I
don't know what's gonna happen in Golden State. They're finally about to see the money stuff become an issue because they had this tiny little magical window that may never happen again with the way the salary cap jumped and it wasn't smoothed at first. And they had Steph on a super cheap deal, and they had been able to sign Draymond to his thing, and so they just had all this cash lying around. Well, now they've had to give Steph the big contract, and KD gets his raise, and Klay is, he's only making $19 million this year, which I realize is a pretty big number when compared to what most people make.
For humans,
yeah. But for Klay Thompson, that's well below his market rate.
Under market, yeah.
And Draymond Green is only making $17 million this coming year.
Well, he's the one, he's already said he's going to ask for the max.
And he will
Draymond
get it.
has already said that.
They've got him for 2 more seasons. So something's going to pop either at the end of 2 more years or at the end of this coming year. Because keeping all those pieces together is going to be damn near impossible. And then just human nature, right? They're going to want to try something else. It's at some point you're just like, all right, this has been real, but we're like 6 years deep in this. Let's see what other universe is out there. One of those dudes could end up a Laker.
I just don't know that Klay is wired that way. The guy that I want seems like the most likely to be like,
I'll stay.
Comfortable. I don't want to move.
Things are good.
Things are good. I'm
a Splash Brother.
3 ways. Splash Brothers.
I get a lot of credit. I'm one of the 2 Splash Brothers.
Yeah,
Kevin Durant might leave.
I'm having a good time.
We might be looking at a Lakers team with LeBron and KD next year.
I do think that's more possible, though I still think that's going to be the Knicks. By the way, my hot take for this year is I actually don't think Golden State's going to win. That is my weird hot take. I think they really came close to losing this year.
The Rockets
Houston had them.
The Rockets have had a bad offseason.
Houston hadn't gotten worse. If Houston had just stood pat, I'd feel better about this prediction. But I do think that the Golden State thing might unravel this year. And it may be one of those things where we look at it like we looked at the end of the Miami Heat run with LeBron, where it was like at the beginning of the season, it looked like it could just go on forever. And then by the end of the season, you realize like these things do have a shelf life. And nature does run its course and it happens. And it might be one of those where we look back and be like, oh, there were actually a lot of indicators. It's very hard to make 5 finals.
Yeah, it's almost impossible. It's exhausting.
Yeah.
These guys are beat to hell. I think they win it again. I think there's one more in the tank for this crew, and then I think that splits it up. Well, they certainly aren't going to lose to an Eastern Conference team in the final. So I guess if they don't win it all, then they lose somewhere along the way. The Houston offseason has been a clunker, losing 2 of their critical 3-and-D guys. That was rough for them. It seems like they're going to try to turn those dudes into Melo coming up, which is not great for their schemes.
Ideal. Not ideal.
Not ideal. I hate to say it, but I kind of like the weird freako roster that the Thunder are building with a lot of defense-first guys.
They're sneaky. They're going to be sneaky.
And they're going to be mad, too, because they got embarrassed this year. And
yeah,
Russ is always mad, but the other guys might be mad around him now.
I had the same thought, which was like, oh, you know who could be the frisky team that no one sees coming exact. Even though it's like they're not a cute underdog story.
No, they
have
spent
like,
$280 million.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I was like when they picked up Schroeder,
yeah,
Ricky Schroeder. I was like, oh, that's one of those sneaky good moves that goes under the radar at the time because this time has been so chaotic. But now you're kind of looking at either a 6-man or a fellow guard. I don't know what.
Very
no,
fast.
he's probably a 6-man, right?
They're very fast. I don't know what they're going to do with him on the offensive end because it's like it's Russ with the ball every single possession.
Yeah.
But they have, outside of Westbrook, who is a gambler, they have some really good defenders on that team now. Jeremy Grant, Paul George, Andre
Roberson is the second coming of Scottie Pippen, obviously, because the way everyone was talking about it, #unfinished business, was that if Andre Roberson
healthy,
had been there, they would have swept Golden State and Utah, and
everybody.
It would be a coronation.
Yeah. Andre, his career 22% from downtown was going to lift them over the top. But they are good on defense, which makes up for the fact that they have this weird Russell Westbrook cap on the offensive side, or Billy Donovan cap, or whoever you want to put the blame on. They only can do so many things when one guy runs the same 2 plays every time down the court.
That's true.
But if they can stop other people, then they can get that points per possession thing where then they have a little bit of an edge, I guess.
Well,
I don't know.
Are we okay? Let me ask you this question.
You're going to play some bets, aren't you?
Oh, like I haven't already. By the way, I bet on Kawhi and the Raptors.
Nice.
So I made a little money off of that.
Eli's buying.
That's a subplot. I mean, that there was an option to bet on him going there, and I seized the opportunity because I was like, why did they just go way up in the betting,
that was
which
a weird.
Basically means that that means people know stuff.
Yeah, it means somebody behind the scenes put a crap load of money on the Raptors.
Right. And Vegas decided like we're not going to get screwed. Okay, but let me ask you this, because basically all of the arguments we just made for Oklahoma City, can you make that argument for the Lakers?
No.
Can you make the argument that we're going to sneak up on people?
I wish I could. But a lot of our guys, I think, have a better reputation than the numbers might actually indicate. Like Rondo is pretty old. There was a time in his life where he was pretty good on defense. He's just a little slow now.
Right.
KCP is decent on defense, but maybe not quite as good as everybody wants to give him credit for. He does get blown by a little bit.
Right.
Lonzo is outstanding on defense. He's like the anchor for that team on the defensive side. So I don't know that the Lakers are going to sneak up on people because everybody's going to be mad about the whole LeBron thing. But just from an overall wins-loss perspective, I do actually agree with your assessment. I do think the Lakers are going to win. I thought a week ago, frankly, I thought betting the under on the Lakers would make a lot of sense. But now, the more that I'm seeing everybody talking about how this roster, the assembly of this roster is a dumpster fire, there might actually be some value on an over with the Lakers as people start to say, how is this all going to come together? Well, it's going to come together because they've got 4 or 5 really good young dudes that are going to be X times better this season even than they were last year, and they won 35 games without LeBron.
Yep. I mean, I betting wise, it just depends how much the Laker loving public bumps the number up, which I'm sure will be
a lot.
You pay a Laker tax, which is it's going to be 3 games higher than it should be.
Yeah, it's a shame.
Most likely. But I do think that when we initially signed LeBron, it was like obviously euphoria and people probably took it too far. But now I think it's gone the other way. We're being undervalued as a team. I mean, I also think it's kind of like that part in all of the Mission Impossible movies where they're like, we've got to, break into Langley and get the knock list. And you're like, this is so crazy. It just might work.
Well, the problem is we have all the bomb guys. We
have all the Ocean's 11 bomb experts. But I do think that to some extent, it's certainly a fun gamble. I don't know that it's a smart gamble, but it's an awesome gamble to be like, let's assemble this crazy team of guys who are not going to be scared, who are going to all think they're the best player on the court, and let's
help
just
us.
like go in there and like throw haymakers. And what I will say this, I think if you're talking just playoffs, because I think we're going to make the playoffs. I've heard people being like, they're not even going to make the playoffs. I'm like, screw off. We have like, since when has LeBron not made the playoffs?
Yeah.
But I feel pretty confident that if I'm another team, I would not want anything to do with matching up against us in the playoffs. Mainly because we're such a wild card team. If you told me that there was a playoff series where Michael Beasley averaged 22 points, I would like not be shocked.
No,
I know that he's capable of that.
You'd have the same reaction as if someone told you Michael Beasley took 2 shots, missed them both, turned it over 8 times, and never played another second in the playoffs.
Right. But okay.
Which is like, okay, yeah. Beasley.
But okay. But if you told me, I think we can both agree, like Robert Covington is a much better player than Lance Stevenson.
By a bit.
Who were we just talking about? Oh, Michael Beasley. But if you told me that Robert Covington scored 20 points a game in a series or 23 points, like you couldn't stop Robert Covington in this series, I'd be shocked. Whereas if you told me that Lance Stevenson scored 20 points in a series, I'd be like, that's crazy, but he is Lance Stevenson.
Yeah.
Like I like the same thing that makes us combustible. Where if you also told me we got swept in the series, I'd be like, yeah, well, that's what happens when you sign nothing but weirdos and young people to be your team. I think like we could have one of those weird playoff runs where it's like, it doesn't really make sense, but LeBron's still the best player on the planet. And like, who knows day to day what our lunatic team is going to do.
Yeah, the bell curve is pretty wide for this one.
It's pretty wide, which just as a fan, I could not be more excited. We have like the all meme team. I'm so in for it. There's a good chance that like 2, maybe 3 of our players get like an embarrassing arrest or disappear to Lake Havasu.
Hey, look, as long as KCP isn't coming 2 games from jail this year, I feel like it's a step in the right direction.
And we haven't even mentioned him.
Yeah.
A guy who wore an ankle bracelet last season has not even been registering on our team as one of the potential problems. We've been talking about lunatics and we haven't mentioned LeVar Ball.
Yeah, nobody cares about LeVar Ball anymore.
He's not even on the radar.
He's yesterday's news. He said he could beat LeBron one-on-one, and the internet was like, we don't care.
Maybe that was Magic's grand strategy, was just the only way to neutralize LeVar Ball was to sign 5 guys crazier than LeVar Ball to be on the team.
Brilliant. You filled a room. It's like finding Where's Waldo when everyone is dressed as Waldo.
Exactly. They took away his super strength.
That's brilliant. Magic, shrewd. Very shrewd Magic.
Very shrewd.
Okay, let's play one last exercise here before we wrap this one up. The exercise is, what's the worst case scenario, barring injury? Let's eliminate injury from the mix.
Okay.
Worst case scenario for this coming season, for me, is that somebody gets a stick or a bug in their bonnet. I don't know. Is a bee in their bonnet, a bug in their ass, whatever the expression is.
I don't know. It's definitely from the 30s. So.
Whatever it is, it's something that someone like me, a baseball broadcaster, should know how to say. That someone gets a bee in their bonnet and plays all of the old guys all season long. But I almost don't see that as even a possibility.
I think that's a 0% chance of that happening.
That,
I think
to me,
the
is the
only
worst
guy
case.
that happens with is Rondo, potentially.
That's the worst case scenario for me. That the Lakers are like, we got to prove we can actually win, so forget the young guys for now. Let's play the old guys. Brutal. I'd rather lose games and play the young guys.
And I think that's the corollary to my answer to that question, which my answer to that question is the worst case scenario for this year is that the young guys don't take a big step forward. That we kind of go, like Ingram's a nice player. Or like, Kuzma's a guy who can just score, but that's kind of it. Or that Lonzo is such a liability as a shooter and a driver that it's not worth it. Those are my big fears, because I do think that the bet that they made, and I think it's pretty clear, is we're not willing to kind of mortgage our future for a win quick strategy. That's the bet that they made. I think that's the bet that they made last year with Paul George. I think that's the bet that they are making this year with Kawhi. And just in the guys that they're signing. Their whole strategy seems to be like, we think we have potential all-stars on rookie contracts, and that is actually the most valued thing you could possibly have. And we have enough cap space to fill in, with either another superstar or awesome bench guys next year. I think that's the bet. So the worst case scenario to me is to realize that was a bad bet.
Yeah, that is a worst case scenario. What of each of those guys, what is the step that they each need to make for us to feel good about this decision? For Lonzo, I assume it's the shot. Or
the drive. To me, Lonzo, it's the driving. It's seeing that he's going to be aggressive enough to cause break down defenses, because he didn't really do that last year.
No, I don't think he could trust. He didn't really trust himself near the rim. So you sort of have to. Okay, that's fair. What about Ingram? It seemed like he was just sort of getting a little bit better at everything. Is that trajectory continue?
Yeah, I think in Ingram by the end of this season, you want to think like that guy is going to make 2 all-star teams. That I think is like, and I think he's an outside shot of doing that sooner than later. I'm a big Ingram believer. Like, I just don't. There's almost no scenario, barring injury, knock on wood, that like he's not a bust. So the question is just like how high the ceiling is, but he has a pretty much complete offensive game, and he has all of the tools to be a good defender. So I just don't. Him and Hart are the guys I'm the least. They seem the most knowable to me. Yeah, like Josh Hart, I think there's no universe where Josh Hart is out of the league in 3 years.
No, he's going to be. He might not be a superstar, but it does seem like he'll just be a good basketball player.
Yeah,
useful. Kuzma's got to get stronger and better. In tough rebounding situations, defensive stuff. I love that killer instinct on the offensive side, but he's not killing anybody on defense so far.
No, and I think that's the jump you got to make. And by the way, you don't need all of these guys to be unreal. I think you need 3 of them, of that 4, to be really good players
and just get better. You want to see progress in some field, and that's okay. So I think we basically see eye to eye on that stuff. The next time we talk, hopefully nothing insane has happened. I don't even know what to root for at this point. Like, it's good radio, but damn, it's nerve-wracking. Michael Beasley's a Laker.
Yeah, as long as these guys don't like try to reenact the movie Set It Off, I think we'll be okay. Just as a weird postscript on this, the ESPYs were last night.
Yeah, you work those things.
I work on those. I'm one of the writers for the ESPYs, and I really, really wanted to meet Kuzma, who was there, or Josh Hart, who was there. I did not get to do that because LeBron hosted his own rival party to the one that the ESPYs puts on, which I was not invited to. But I did get to meet JaVale McGee.
Outstanding.
Who was wearing a fanny pack. And that, in a weird way, felt worth it.
Yeah.
And I got to meet Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who we somehow convinced to wear a full Game of Thrones outfit for a bit, and he was fantastic. So
outstanding.
It could have been worse.
I want more SB stories on the next episode of Ball In, Ball Out. You got a few more up your sleeve. I'm sure you do. Things that you can say that won't get you in any trouble, I guess.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. He is Eli Bauman. I am Dan Besbris. Dr. Noble will rejoin us for the next edition when he's not being a doctor, which, folks, I don't mean to surprise you, but that's more important than this podcast.
Slightly.
Have a wonderful week or two. Whenever we get back at you, something crazy will happen. You can guarantee that. Michael Beasley, welcome to the Los Angeles Lakers.
Yeah, and subscribe and rate us and all that good stuff.
Yeah, what Eli said. So long, everybody.
Peace.
This has been a Hoop Ball presentation.